extremely excessive, she can even combine her prayers at that point. The other scholars say she should still pray on time, but she should just continue to keep something there, to keep herself clean, to keep her, and it's considered hadath da'im, which is continuous discharge at that moment. Also in salah, in prayer, one of the concessions is that when the woman feels excessive pain towards the end of her third trimester, she is allowed to pray sitting down at that point. Okay, so she's been given that permission to pray sitting down. All right. Now the next one is if you go to the doctor, obviously you're going to be told that you need to take prenatal pills, DHA and prenatal pills. Now with that being said, a lot of these pills have gelatin in them. Actually, the vast majority of them have gelatin in them, right? So I actually wanted to make this presentation as comprehensive as possible. So I actually researched pills that don't have gelatin in them. And actually my wife used these, which was Nature Made. There was a brand called Nature Made. If you go to Whole Foods, you get a brand called Nature Made. There is no gelatin in those prenatal pills. Also, alhamdulillah, we have different halal vitamin companies now. I don't know if they have prenatal pills. Noor Vitamins and HNC, you can check if they have halal vitamins, prenatal vitamins in particular. Noor Vitamins and HNC. But if you're looking for a brand, Nature Made does not have gelatin in it, so it's not permissible to use gelatin in that moment. The next thing is the hukum on your doctor, finding a doctor. Alhamdulillah, we live in Dallas here. There's plenty of female doctors, plenty of Muslim women, OBGYNs that can take care of that. But what is the preference, the order of preference there? So the scholars say the order of preference when a person has to expose their awrah for medical reasons, Muslim woman is the first one. And if you can't find a Muslim woman, then who? Then a non-Muslim woman. And if you can't find a non-Muslim woman, then a Muslim man. And if you can't find a Muslim man, then it would be a non-Muslim man. Now obviously you're going to be able to find a non-Muslim woman anywhere. Okay? But I was just mentioning that just so you can have that in your mind, you know, knowing the fiqhi ruling on that. The order of exposure of awrah when there's any medical emergency, actually, for that, you know, just on that note, any medical emergency, if a person has to expose what is traditionally hijab, that is the order that they would have to follow. All right? So alhamdulillah, being in Dallas, mashallah, it's a huge blessing, just having so many options in that regard. Alhamdulillah. The next one, contentious issue, baby showers. I get asked about this all the time, and I'm so hesitant because people get so emotional with the answer. Now, in principle, there is nothing wrong with it, in principle. Don't just put halal next to it right away and say, all right, I'm not going to listen to anything else he says. In principle, there's nothing wrong with it because it's not religious in its nature. There's no tashabbuh because imitation is in things of deen. It's not associated with any religion. And it doesn't compete with Eid. So even the scholars that would say that it's al-Eid tu'ad, that comes every year, it's annual, like a birthday or something of that sort. It doesn't compete with the Eid unless you get pregnant every year, which many people do, mashallah. But you know, at the same time, it's not annual. So in principle, there is nothing wrong with the idea of coming together for a baby shower. But there's a few conditions, obviously. Number one, extravagance, israf, has to be avoided. There's a lot of extravagance at these things. A lot of wastefulness, a lot of extravagance, just like in weddings, right? There's a lot of wastefulness. You know, and it also puts people in a hard position socially. You're expected to give a certain gift, and you know, if you're given a gift, you're expected to give a certain gift. This is wrong. To put people under that pressure is wrong. So it should not be treated like a must. Can't get mad at someone for not attending a baby shower. Specific practices that are specific to the cultural baby showers that we have should be avoided. Specific practices should be avoided as much as possible. Why? Because they're shubuhat, they're doubtful matters. Okay? So you should try to avoid the specific practices. But in essence, if it's just a gathering to give gifts to the mom, to prepare her for her baby, then it's fine. But I want to make a note on that. It's much better to do that. So giving gifts to the mother and, you know, helping them prepare for the baby is a good thing. But it is much better to do that after she gives birth to the baby. A lot of times I've seen it happen. It's heartbreaking. The baby shower is done. You have all these gifts all over the place, and then, you know, the baby dies. The psychological and the traumatic effect of that, you know, is not something that the Sharia would want, obviously. Okay, so we should not want that to happen. All right, so it's better not to do that to people, to give the gifts before and have this party before. It's better to do it afterwards. One time, just bring your gifts. Maybe you could combine it with the aqiqah, right? It's good for the people to provide gifts and, you know, help the mother prepare and things of that sort. So again, in principle, nothing wrong with it. Specific practices should be avoided. Okay, and we should try to eliminate the non-Islamic practices, and it's better to do it afterwards. It's better to do it after, because then you'd also be fulfilling a sunnah at that point, which is helping the new parents is actually a form of sunnah, as we'll come across, right? The Sahaba would help each other out. Giving gifts afterwards is actually a sunnah. Okay. Also, in the last trimester, many of the scholars, particularly Imam Malik rahimahullah, and from the Maliki school, they say at that point a woman can only dispose of 1/3 of her property. Why? If a person does their will, right? They can only, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already designated 2/3 of everything that you own. 1/3 of it is what you own, right? You can give charity with that. You can designate some of it to your family. Perhaps you want to give, you know, someone who's getting a share, a larger share. So you can do whatever you want with that 1/3. Some of the ulama, they said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a woman in her last trimester, because she's so close, subhanAllah, to death, especially in those times, you know, you don't have the hospitals and things that we have today, right? The advancements that we have today, that she's so close at that point she can only designate 1/3 of her property. I'm not saying I agree with that opinion, I just find it very significant, subhanAllah, just to mention it. But there is no authentic hadith that I could find, at least, that would designate that. But a person who's following the Maliki school, obviously they would be bound by that opinion. But just to show you again, you're fi halati, you know, jihadin fi sabilillah. You're in a position of being a soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that moment. You're being pushed close to death at those moments, and it's very important to keep that in mind. What are some of the things that can be done during pregnancy? Okay. Number one is that children can hear things in the womb, right? You see people with their headphones and stuff like that walking around, playing stuff on their iPod or iPad or whatever it is, letting them listen to all kinds of jazz music or, you know, symphonies and stuff like that to try to enhance their brains. And you know, subhanAllah, it's been medically proven that when the child is in a traumatic environment, I was listening to a doctor talk about this, a child psychologist talk, when it's in a traumatic environment, when it's hearing yelling and screaming all the time, even when it's in the womb, it'll come out and it'll already kind of have a bad attitude, right? It'll already be traumatized a little bit from everything it's been hearing on the outside. And you find that with the time of the Salaf, Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said the Salaf used to recite the Quran to the child even when the child was in the womb. Okay, they would actually recite the Quran to the child even when in the womb. And he said especially in the voice of the mother, because that's the relationship obviously that's going to need to be the strongest, and one that's going to need to have the most trust in it, and things, the component of trust. So in the voice of the parents, I mean, even the father also, but hearing the Quran in that voice. So you don't just put sudais on your stomach. You know, you recite the Quran to your child, subhanAllah, while the child is in the womb. And there are no particular surahs for that. Right? So I was seeing some websites like recite every day Surah Al-Fatiha 45 times to your child, and then read Qul Huwallahu Ahad 17 times. All of that is nonsense. Right? Just reading Quran in general is a good thing to do. Reading Quran to your child while the child is in the womb. And Imam Ibn Sirin rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that a person should make the child familiar with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the child comes out of the womb. So even speaking to the child about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making them familiar with Allah's names. Subhanallah. Even if obviously they're not going to come out, you know, like Isa alayhi salam and say, Inni Abdullah, you know, it's not going to happen. If it does, then mashallah, but you know, we'd be pretty impressed with just Baba, you know, or Mama, you know. But still, just preparing the child and having a good environment around, subhanAllah, harmony around the child, not lots of yelling and screaming and stuff like that. Okay, having harmony in the environment, even while the child is in the stomach, and obviously making dua for the child's righteousness and health. You know, think about it. This is the time where you really need to step up your dua. Okay, so engaging in dua. Not just making dua for a gender, you shouldn't be doing that. making dua for righteousness, for health. Okay? And go far. Zakaria alayhi salam, when he made dua, before Yahya alayhi salam, he's in his 90s and he's making dua to Allah for a child. Before Allah even told him that, okay, I'll give you a child, he's already asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of the qualities of the child. Right? يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا. He's already talking to Allah about how he wants his child to be. Okay? So make dua for specific things. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you, a scholar. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you a da'iyah. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes your child special, radiyah, pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make dua that Allah makes your child intelligent. All those things. Make dua for that. Be specific. Don't wait to see the child and then decide then how you're going to make dua for the child. Make dua for specifics, even while the child is in the womb, inshallah. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and break for questions, inshallah, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back, inshallah, at 3 o'clock. Yes, sister?
I'm in my second trimester, and I get really dizzy and a head rush coming from sujood to standing. So I've modified by sitting in my second and in my fourth rakat, so I pop up for the third. Is that okay? Just so that I don't.
I mean, it's better to maintain consistency throughout the salah. So if you have the excuse to sit, just sit.
For the whole thing, for all four.
Yeah. If you don't know if you're gonna fall, or you're gonna be dizzy, or things of that sort. So for example, if you want to pray, like if you think you can make it 2 rak'ahs without getting dizzy and it's not harmful to you at all, then you could do those 2 rak'ahs of sunnah that way. But it's better not to just be alternating so much throughout the salah. Just from the fiqh of salah. If it's consistent, that's fine, inshallah. Do as much as you can, that's fine. But you have the permission. If you have the permission to sit for 1 rak'ah in salah, you have the permission to sit throughout the salah. If you're not able to stand for the entire salah, then you have that permission.
Yeah, it's not the act of standing itself, it's just going
Sujood.
Sujood to standing.
Have you talked to a doctor about that and things of that sort?
Yeah, it's
okay.
normal, you're used to it.
Okay, yeah. That's why, mashallah, women are mujahideen at that time. All kinds of stuff happens, right? I'll go 1 brother, 1 sister, inshallah. Yeah. Yes, brother. What's that?
You mentioned the benefit of having daughters over sons. So is it okay to ask for a daughter?
Is it okay to ask for a daughter or ask for a son? It's okay.
Ask for a daughter over the son.
It's okay to ask for, it's okay. You can't say it's haram to ask for a gender. Just don't be disappointed if it's a girl. Or if it's a son, it's okay. Yeah.
You talked about not doing certain practices during baby showers. Can you be more specific?
I've never been to a baby shower, so I can't give you too much specifics on what you need to avoid. But I mean, obviously, just things that are very specific, like to the culture, right? They're shubuhat, they're doubtful matters. Right, so bringing flowers to a wedding is okay, but when you start doing like specific things, like turning around and throwing it and whoever catches it, like when you do that kind of stuff, I've never been to a baby shower, I have no idea how a baby shower looks. All right, but just avoiding specific practices because they might fall into doubtful things. All right, so that's all. So just having a get together to plan for it, that's fine. Not being extravagant. Again, it's better to do it afterwards, but it's fine, inshallah. Yes.
So, going back to the previous section, you mentioned that if it's after 4 months and a baby, if there's a miscarriage, you do the janazah and the naming rights and all that. But before 4 months, the Sharia says there's no life, but there's a heartbeat in the baby as well, medically. So are you not required to do the janazah and naming and all that?
No.
You can't, right?
You don't throw it away in the garbage. I mean, you still dispose in a reasonable way. But there's no soul at that point. The ruh is different from the physical preparations and things of that sort. The soul is different, it's distinguished.
But you can do the naming and
No, you don't name at that point. You don't do that.
Okay.
I should repeat questions, right? The question was about if a child dies before 4 months. So you're obviously not going to throw it away. You'll still dignify the fetus, right? But you're not going to name it and do janazah and things of that sort, and ghusl at that point. Sisters, yes?
Actually, it's on the same question. If the baby is at the age of 4 months and it got miscarriage, so you don't know it, the soul is there, and the doctor's like, it's maybe 15, 16 weeks.
You assume it has a soul.
I'm sorry?
You assume that it was more because you take the safe side in that. فَلْيَبْنِ عَلَى الْيَقِينِ. You build upon what's certain. So if you don't know if it's 4 months, it could have been 4 months, maybe a day younger, a day older, then you would take the safe side.
Yeah, they said like 15, 16, something.
Yeah, obviously it's, yeah. I mean, the Salaf didn't used to have like ultrasounds and stuff like that. And you make your best judgment, and you assume you always want to be, you always want to err on the side of caution.
And the blood is going to be fast at that time?
What's that? Yes, and the blood will be nifas at that time. You're assuming fully that it's a 4 month, if it's on the border, you're assuming it's a 4-month-old baby. Who raised their hands first? Brother, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, going back to the previous section, you mentioned that I think in the 4-month period, deformity also could be a reason for.
Yes.
So.
Because it's a haja, it's not a darura.
So it's not just a danger to the life, it's even physical deformity.
No, because a haja, so the question is about deformity and things of that sort, and if the child has some serious issues and it's still within the 4 months, right, then at that point it still falls within haja, it's still allowed. Okay? Sister's question, yeah.
Can you explain what you meant by the 1/3 of your property? Is that in reference to a will? Or?
Did you guys attend the will part last night? The will gathering? Oh, okay. So yeah, in reference to the will, in a will. So right now, if I want to give all of my money to my daughter because I feel like it, that's fine. It's halal. But once you're dead, you can't say in my will, I want to give everything to my daughter. At that point, it goes to the divisions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made in inheritance. So in essence, at that point, Imam Malik rahimahullah said at that point in that last trimester, then you're like that person. You can't just give everything up because you're afraid. You're only allowed to designate that 1/3. Yeah. I'll do one more question, then we'll take a break, inshallah. Yeah. I'll get you, brother, when you're next. I'm sorry.
Miscarriage after 4 months, or even before 4 months, it's considered a miscarriage? Like, is it a miscarriage after the soul, or is it like?
It's a miscarriage regardless, but the fetus has the soul after 4 months. All right. All right. So we'll take a break, inshallah ta'ala. Probably 10 minutes, inshallah. Give people a chance to refresh themselves. I think. Do we have any refreshments outside? Yeah. We have tea and refreshments outside, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll reconvene at 3:05, inshallah. Okay? Reconvene at 3:05. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, well, let me turn the mic off and everything.
It's not personal or anything. It's just
No, I know. I just want to.
When you say, like, I hate the idea that it has no soul until 4 months, because, like, I had a sonogram just a couple of days ago. Making its own decisions
It's nice to go see how big MC was. Not advertising. Mansfield. Mansfield, yes. You were over there, right? I was in Mansfield. Oh, okay. So, what time is
So who said that it's not relevant? So it didn't come from Allah. It came from Allah to the Prophet. He said not till 4 months. I mean, maybe they didn't have sonograms then. They didn't know what.
It's the highest degree of authenticity.
Wow. It's just strange because the baby is no different at 4 months than